Go long, real long.
There he is. All right. Jesus Christ.
Work?
You're there, dude. You're all good. There he is. Look at this handsome fella. God, I was freaking out, dude. What's going on?
Dukes and I were DMing 15 seconds ago. And he says, just get in here. The subtext of your DM was like, well, dude, you're sitting on your ass. Click on the link. When you get in? This is 2024. We have technology. You don't have to call and talk to the phone screener. We're here. So I just click and here we are. This is magic.
It is magic, brother. Well, good to see you. This, of course, is the best in the business as far as I'm concerned with being entertaining while talking sports. The great Kyle Brandt from Good Morning Football. You might have heard of his Angry Runs segment that he's done on the air from time to time. By the way, brother, you made a big impact in my neck of the woods. A commander finally winning an angry run and getting his own shirt on homage. That's a pretty big deal.
If you want to talk about the Sean Taylor statue, we can. If you want to talk about the remnants of the Snyder era, we can. But the true stain on that franchise was they had never won angry runs. They were one of 32 teams, the only one who'd never won it. We got Jaguars winning it. We got Panthers. We got expansion nonsense, blah, blah, blah. The cornerstone, one of the cornerstone franchises had never won. They were the last holdout. And finally, of all people, Austin Eckler, like a lifelong Charger, knee lifts a guy like Street Fighter 2 Champions Edition, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to give it to you. It's over. They won it, and now we can move on with our life.
Do you have a special place in your heart for the quarterbacks to get a scepter? I always get extra steamed up when that happens.
Big time. I love it. Listen, Josh Allen's got 4 of them, but sometimes there's really weird ones. Like I've been doing this so long now that Sam Darnold got one once. You can look it up. He ran over a guy. He didn't give a damn. Tua got one, which is I hope he never gets again because it gets real heavy with him. But I do love it. I also love the defensive guys who make an interception and then destroy someone who doesn't know how to tackle on the return. But I do like the quarterbacks a lot. And believe me, if Jayden has one, he probably shouldn't have one either. He should probably get down or out of bounds. But if he does, I'll send it.
When you're doing that segment, are you still, you've been doing this a while now, it is completely embraced by the guys actually doing the running. I mean, it's like a place of honor for the players themselves. I know what a fan you are. I know the type of fan you are. I'm a similar type of fan. That's got to be such a cool thing that you've developed. And it's positive. There's so much negative shit in all of our echo chamber right now. That's got to feel very rewarding for you.
I love doing it. I wake up on Tuesday and I'm excited to get to work. It's so fun. And like you go back like I do. There was a segment for a long time on ESPN called Jacked Up. And it was guys just getting destroyed over the middle. And it was huge, huge hits. And it was really fun and it was iconic. And then it became really out of date and obsolete because the guys were getting potentially injured. Long term, you don't know. So the baseline for angry runs is play is penalized. We don't use it. If a player is injured, we don't use it. If a player even has to leave the game, we don't use it. Even now, we've escalated to if a player is going to be fined, we don't use it. So our consciences are clean. And it's like, it's one of the last bastions of pure physicality and celebrating that in the NFL. Very, very proud of it. And I think the guys know about it. I've had running back coaches who'd be like, we showed this segment in our room, at the Colts or wherever. And I say to my guys, like, if we're not getting nominated for this award, we're doing something wrong. It's very flattering. I'm very proud of it. It's just started as a dumb segment like 7 years ago. And now there's like merchandise deals and scepters and kids and babies wearing the stuff. It's awesome.
Kyle, Sunday Night Football gave us a lot of Monday morning content, none being bigger than the CeeDee Lamb, Dak Prescott discourse. Do you think he said jump ball or subpar?
First of all, great question. I'm just looking at how you're fonted as Radio's Gigantor. I'm way into it. I'm not going to bury the lead and fly right over that. Can I tell you something? When I was a little kid in the 80s and I would wrestle with my dad and we do like pro wrestling or whatever, and I was always the Ultimate Warrior, and my dad made up a wrestling name for himself and he was Gigantor, and that's what he would go by. So that's his origin story. What is yours for that kind of handle? And then we'll talk about the Cowboys.
I'm a big fat monster, and Dukes called me Gigantor when I started hanging around with him. Well, I play college football, so it's it all kind of evens out. But I just loom over people menacingly.
I like the handle; it's right there. It looks really good. I noticed that Dukes has no nickname. It's just his proper name. Like, do you have a nickname that you should?
It is, but it's Shoed, and it always weirds people out because they don't know how to pronounce it. They go Ski-Hued, and it always makes my guests uncomfortable. I didn't want to make you uncomfortable.
I'm very uncomfortable right now. You know me. I'm very nervous. All right, so the Cowboys lip reading. I don't know. I'm still trying to figure out from a few weeks ago, whatever was that weird hug shove versus Saleh and Rodgers. We spent like a week with that. And I do love amateur lip reading. It looked to me like CD was saying something and Dak didn't even look up from his Microsoft Surface as they were looking at whatever crappy play they had just run. What is the consensus? This is like when you do a poll or go to the phones or something. What is the clubhouse leader for what he said?
Right now, I think it's going as jump ball 4. Additionally, it was right after the interception in the back of the end zone. I think that people could definitely attach subpar for subpar.
I think it was jump ball, and Dak's body language was like, jump this, dude. I'm going to throw it to Hunter Lipke. I'll throw it to whoever I want right now. That's my guy.
As he should.
That's right. I love Lipke.
Let's talk about the Cowboys and the Steelers. I think it was Fox put up the fan bases. When you have to take the garbage you have to take doing what you do at the level you do.
Yeah.
The most toxic fan base I have encountered personally is the Jacksonville Jaguars. If you say anything critical about them, I've been ganged up on by their fans a couple times in my run. Who do you hear the most guff from as far as the people responding to when you have a critical take of somebody?
Well, there's different types of guff, to use your word. The critical take one is one thing, and let me put that aside and I'll get to it. The worst guff, honestly the most annoying, is talk about us. Why aren't you talking about us? And you know what is so great about it though? It's almost always from a fan base that like starts 2-0, you know, like not like 12-0, not 2-0. And you're like, you know why we're not talking about you? Because I bet your ass you're going to be 2-3 in like a month. Right. And they always are. And we have the foresight to do it. And especially like we operate, and what I do is like, we are under no mandate to talk about the Cowboys and the Cowboys and the Cowboys and what would happen if LeBron signed with the Cowboys. We don't have to do that. We can talk Jaguars and Texans and Seahawks if we want. And we do sometimes. I don't like those fan bases, but I mean, listen, to get specific about why do you bash us, I've shown a lot of enthusiasm over the years to the Bills. And so by proxy, the Dolphins fans get mad a lot because Dolphins fans have had a rough run. Like they've got this thing where they're haunted by their history, kind of like Bears fans, where, you know, there's a statue of Marino and like that's really an old statue and they don't have the playoff wins. And so now like when you get a fan base that is really hopeful and things are new and fresh, like they are with the Dolphins, if you knock them then or don't pay attention to them, then they get really, really frustrated. Like there's no sport in giving Browns fans crap. Like they're just like, just give it to us. We don't care. We like it. But if there's a fan base with renewed excitement, like there was for the Dolphins when McDaniel was hired, very sensitive. So I get a lot from that.
When you see Derrick Henry go to the Ravens with your affinity for him and the way that he runs the football, and it's tantalizing. But now seeing him in his full form, like some Resident Evil boss, I mean, it's just leading the league in rushing when he's 30 years old. It's just for what you do. I imagine it's better than a nice Salisbury steak with some greens on the side and an egg cream. Is that something where you're like, this has the potential to be the best bit that for what I personally put out there into the world, and now to see it come to fruition, that's got to be like, oh my God, I've got content now for the rest of the season as long as this guy keeps doing this stuff.
Well, I don't know if it's as good as a Salisbury steak with some greens on the side and an egg cream, but nothing is. But
short list.
The Henry thing was fascinating because it's like, all right, we know he's great and he's the 2,000 yards, all the stuff he's done. We've been around the block a few times on this. You're that old, you have that many carries. Like you're gonna go to the Ravens and it's gonna be embarrassing that you once had a Ravens jersey on and when you retired. Remember that 1 year you had with the Ravens? Like remember when Adrian Peterson was on the Cardinals and the Saints and the Lions and it gets weird. It's like Shaq on the Celtics. It's almost Shaq on the Lakers. Yeah. It's at very least Shaq on the Heat. And the fact that he's like, to the optics, to your point, someone that big and that fast and that strong in the all black jersey and getting the ball from Lamar and running that offense, it's terrifying. It really looks like a cinematic villain. It's like Sauron or somebody like some sort of Sith Lord or something.
Yeah.
It's really scary. And then the problem is, I shouldn't say it's a problem. Like Derrick Henry is the nicest, gentlest personality you'll ever meet. He's so kind. He's so soft-spoken. I met him once on the red carpet, and I was such an imbecile because I was such a fan. I walk up to him like, Derrick, stiff arm me. Just do it. Will you do it? And he's like, come on, man. And then he did it like very gently to my chest, but it was an honor. I feel like
of course.
It was like having Vince Carter dunk on me. Like I would love to have that, and I did.
Kyle, Jayden Daniels, superstar emergence for the Washington Commanders this year, already getting a little bit of buzz for MVP consideration, not as a favorite, but do you think it's fair for him to be getting some consideration 5 games into the season?
Sure. Why not? The MVP chase starts in the preseason now. It's farcically early. Like someone has a good first half in week 1 and we're like MVP, and it's unimaginative, but it's just what we do. Sure, MVP would be really cool if you won it as a rookie. My biggest beef right now, my campaign that I'm going on, I have taken to the very top of the National Football League. I've personally asked Roger Goodell, a friend of mine, a friend of the show. I've just like, we need to flex the Commanders into primetime. I cannot believe this. They don't play a primetime game till week 11 against the Eagles, And the best show in the NFL right now is the Commanders, specifically when he's on the field. I just can't believe like that. I don't think people across the country have seen any Commanders except for highlights and maybe some red zone. It's Commanders Ravens this weekend, and it's on CBS, and it'll be great, and it's Nance and Romo and all that. But like, we need to see the national spotlight on him because it is so special what he's doing. And I've been able to watch some of the games because I have the subscription and I can watch the Commanders game from start to finish. I really, I'm trying not to get over my skis. I've never seen a rookie play just that well. It's so effortless. It's so smooth. The body language is so good. The quotes from after the game are so good. It is the coolest thing going on in the NFL right now, Jayden Daniels, and we need it in primetime. So we need to flex it. We need to flex the crap out of the Commanders. I wish every game of theirs was in primetime, but we have to wait another 6 weeks.
The word I described him as at the beginning of the show is I've never seen a rookie this comfortable. He's just so comfortable in his own skin on the field and in front of the microphone, everything that he does. So you mentioned, Kyle, the teams where their fans are, hey, we're 2-0, we're 3-0, aren't you talking about us? Is this sustainable? The Commanders defense ain't that great. They don't have a lot of weapons. If they went out and made a trade for Amari Cooper, God forbid Devontae Adams, maybe that changes. But other than Terry, you're not out there with, an enormous amount of firepower. Do you think this is a division winning team? Do you think this is a team that can win a playoff game? Is it something greater? Is it too early to say all of that?
Well, the Ravens game will be interesting. Like that's a showdown. But also, the Ravens just gave up 200 yards receiving to Jamar Chase, and their defense didn't look good either. I know they don't line up this arsenal and this quiver of wide receivers, but I love the running game. I love Robinson. I like what Eckler's doing. Like, they run it hard. I don't think their defense is spectacular, but they just haven't needed to be. Are they going to win a playoff game in January? I don't know, but I would definitely take them over Dallas right now. I still have no idea who Philadelphia is as a team. I don't know. I don't know if they're good or they're bad. I don't think if they know. And like Daniel Jones played well yesterday, but he's still Daniel Jones. So like, you're going to hop on one bus right now. I will hop on the Commanders. I don't think it's an anomaly. And I say the same thing about the Vikings. Everyone's like, when is Sam Darnold going to return to being Sam Darnold? We've watched this guy for years. He's never good. I just think right now they just have it. And I say the same thing about the Commanders. I do.
It's funny that when the Vikings win ugly, everyone just expects them. They're the worst 5-0 team we've ever seen. And when the Chiefs win ugly, it's just, well, they're the Chiefs. That's all they take. And I understand they've got the resume, but it's hard to win in this league. It's hard to go to London and not sleep in your bed and go up against a good defense and all those. It's difficult to do the things the Vikings are doing consistently on a regular basis, by the way, while they're piling up a bunch of wins.
Yeah, I mean, I don't get excited about 2-0. It's fine. It's a good job. 5-0 is so different. 5-0, you're going to the playoffs. Like, that's going to happen. It's sort of some sort of historical thing, which likely won't happen. They're just, you watch them, they're so well coached. They do the right things. And listen, that game yesterday in London, I think Darnold took a huge shot at the end of the first half. I thought he broke his ribs, at least bruised them. In the second half, he was terrible because he couldn't finish any of the throws. They have a bye week. They'll be fine. I was never a believer in Sam Darnold, ever. I can't even believe we're talking about him right now in 2024. I always felt like you would hear about Darnold. Every coach who ever coached him would say, Sam's the man. He's so good. He's so good. And you're like, what? Every time he plays, he's terrible. Like, what are you talking about? Shanahan, Matt Rule, you name it. They all love him. He had the feeling of this insufferable, like, Sundance movie that all the critics and film snobs tell you is amazing. But the everyman's like, I don't know. And now he is the everyman. It's incredible. That coaches, turns out, I guess we're right.
So I don't want to keep you all afternoon. I appreciate you making time. I know you're taping stuff. You interviewed Viggo. That's a top fiver for me. And you got to ask him not only about the naked fight scene in Eastern Promises, which is the greatest action sequence of all time, but he's Aragorn. I mean, he's the king, and he fell in love with his horse on the set, and they gave him his horse. And there's like this amazing video of him fishing while they're in New Zealand. There's so much. I had a chance to interview Hackman once on the phone, and he was talking about a Civil War book. So I had to ask 3 questions about that, and then I got 2. And I got a chance to interview Costner once, where I only got 1 question to really just fanboy out. When you get Viggo, you had a little bit more room because you've got some leeway, but you don't have. You could speak to him for the entire afternoon. I know it. How do you parse that all out and decide what you're going to ask him? And give me 1 or 2 of the best things that you can remember from that, because that is a very special one.
I love that you asked. I could talk about this all day. If you are a Viggo guy and you are into the Lord of the Rings, dude, I got stuff for you. All right.
I do.
So it's a Zoom interview. This is a few years ago. I was doing a show called 10 Questions where the person comes on for an hour and you can ask them anything. And it's kind of a game show format and everything. So you know how this is. You sign into the Zoom early because you're the host and everything. And then you're waiting. You're like, I hope they show up. Hope they show up. And then the Zoom comes up and there's Viggo sitting there in his house or something. And I'm telling you, like, this is so Aragorn. This is so like artful and artistic. The guy is rolling a cigarette, not a joint, man. Like he is with old papers and tobacco, like it's 1922. Rolling a cigarette and like licking it and everything. And I go, hey, Viggo, are you rolling a cigarette? He goes, yes, I am. That's something. Yes, I am. I wish I could roll one for you. Would you like one? I was like, never smoked in my life, but I would smoke one with you, Viggo. And he laughs and he's like, so what are we talking about today? And you know how this is. Like, you have to talk about the thing you're plugging, and you don't want to spend 56 minutes of the hour talking about Lord of the Rings because it can be an eye roller. But I picked about 30% through the interview to get to the Lord of the Rings part. So I buttered him up. I talked about some fresh stuff and some anything. And then so he gets to Lord of the Rings. And dude, he could not have been cooler, more willing, more interested and eager, anecdotal, humorous about it. He talked about, it's made a lot about it. We know he was a recast as Aragorn and he had to be shipped out to New Zealand really quickly and learn on the fly. He talked about the first day of sword training where he showed up and there was this sword master who was there standing there in this giant sound stage. And he's like, here's the sword. And on the other end of the sound stage were all these guys in full makeup, regalia, and weapons as orcs and Uruk-hai. And they're like 50 yards away. And the sound guy steps aside and says, just stand in there for a bit. And they have the horde of orcs sprint at him, like screaming with their swords raised. And he's like, I just want to see how you react when that happens. I just want to see, do you run off set? Do you start screaming? And apparently, like, Viggo stood in there with the sword and kind of just, headed up, defending himself as they ran past. He wasn't scared. He didn't blink. And then the sword guy turns to Peter Jackson and is like, we got the right guy. I can work with this guy. And if you know about it, his first scene ever shooting was the Weathertop scene. Sure. When he shows up with the sword and the torch. That's day one on set for him. Just absolutely kicking ass and saving hobbits and everything. So he had story after story. And there's a thing online where I was like, let's talk about Aragorn. I told you I had a lot on this. Let's compare him to the greatest swords people, swordsmen, swordswomen in movie history, and how do you think it would go? So I'm putting him through Aragorn versus Maximus. Who you got? He's like, oh, Aragorn. Aragorn versus Luke Skywalker versus this person, and everyone. William Wallace, Braveheart. He always would say, Aragorn, too much experience, too much knowledge, decades into centuries of time fighting. I would always go with Aragorn, and I was in heaven, man. It was like, I feel like I had the ring. I felt so powerful talking to him.
That's fantastic. And no disrespect to John Wick, all four of them, or, is that the last great trilogy? I don't know if I could put any of the superhero stuff in the same category as that, and so much expectation. And the fans. Yeah, the fans are very, very, they have high expectations for any Tolkien stuff. Do you believe that may be the last great film trilogy that we're ever going to have moving forward?
I think there's some respect owed to Chris Nolan in the Dark Knight movies.
Okay.
I don't think anybody thinks the third one is the best one, but the second one is unbelievable. The first one is really solid. And it's a beautiful trilogy, heavily flawed in certain places, but I don't think it stands up to the Lord of the Rings trilogy. I mean, you know what a nerd I am for this. Like, once a year, my old high school friends and I get together and we watch the extended version back to back to back. We call it the one day. And, there's Elvish wine. And if you're interested, there's Long Bottom Leaf and all that type of stuff. And they just sit around and watch those movies. I can tell. It is a great, great day. There's nothing like those movies. Man, I'm going to push you for this. What is your personal ranking of Fellowship, Two Towers, and Return of the King? How do you rank them?
Two Towers, the moment that Gandalf leads the Rohirrim down the hill and to the king, and they all go down, and then the light hits. And I just love the way that Gandalf is a wizard, and he doesn't throw no fireballs, and he doesn't levitate. Like, he's just a guy with a sword, and every once in a while you get a little hint of power, and it's just enough to turn the tide, and everything is just so understated with him. And the moment in Return of the King where they find him and he's Gandalf the White and they have the epiphany in the forest, and like you see him, like I'm getting teared up just thinking about it, because you think he's Saruman and then he's not, and he doesn't remember his name. And there's so much. It's Two Towers for me, just simply because I love the Horsemen and I love Helm's Deep, and I love the first fight with the wargs where they're shooting the arrows and he gets dragged off the side. I would have tried to ask him about that whole sequence where he goes over the top because there was so much emotion in it, but I would be so nervous just to ask him about it because I know what those fans are like, Kyle, and I know like he's probably been asked that shit so many goddamn times. It's like asking Derrick Henry to stiff arm you. Maybe it was awkward at the time, but you did it, and then he did it. Like who would pay for that experience? I mean, you could raise enough money for charity for the rest of your life just giving that away.
He had interesting takes, Viggo. We talked about the 3 movies, and his take was the first movie is the only movie that is a real movie, and it's a real experience, and it's very special to the cast. And I said, what do you mean? That's the other 2 movies are awesome. He said the other 2 movies were a series of reshoots and additions that were made after the first one came out and was a hit. Now they shot them all, but he said it just felt a little inorganic, and I'm paraphrasing, inorganic, and like they added so many things. For example, they made up all these Legolas things because Orlando Bloom was popping and he was a dreamboat, and so all the thing with him fighting the elephant and sledding down the stairs, he's like, those are all reshoots. It was back. The first one was a pure, authentic experience of us in New Zealand making a movie. The second and third were commercial productions to try to maximize the profit. So those 2 second and third movies are beautiful. The first one is dear to all of us, above and above beyond the rest. I thought that was interesting.
It is, but it also kind of bums me out because Orlando Bloom really is dreamy. And when he skateboards on top of the shield and when he goes off the trunk of the Oliphant, you're like, oh God, I'm popping so big for this shit.
I know. But Viggo keeps it real.
Did you get the Barad-dûr Lego set, the gigantic Sauron's Tower? Did you get that?
I didn't, because I do have a lot of Lego sets at home, but they're all for my 10-year-old son, so he's not into Lord of the Rings yet.
That hurts.
So listen, we got a lot of Star Wars. Oh hell yes!
Look how much that bitch costs. I'll send you one if you want it. I got one that's unopened.
$60, dude. You're not sending me that.
I got an extra one. A listener bought me a second one. I'd already bought it. Do you want it?
I know I don't. You deserve to give that to like a family. Have that be in your will or something.
All right.
Don't give me that. My son and we're not getting to the trilogy yet, but he's starting to ask questions about. He sees the gifs online. He says, "What is that like mountain that has an eye?" Oh, son, we will watch them, and we will watch them properly. I'm going to tell you all about that mountain that has an eye. So we're almost there. It's 5th grade. I think it's time.
All extended cuts, then extended cut of aliens and all the good stuff. All right, last one. You got to tell me about the naked. It's the greatest. Tor, have you seen Eastern Promises?
Yeah, I've watched that scene many times.
I just can't even explain. Not because I'm excited to see Viggo Mortensen's penis, because there's some of that. But what I'm saying is like just putting myself. He's one of the biggest movie stars on the planet, and I've heard him say that's his favorite scene that he's ever filmed in his life, and that doesn't make some weird sense to me. Does he like? How does he look back on that movie? Because it's just one of the most underrated films I've ever seen.
Great. I mean, if you like your fight scenes with knives and scrotums, like you could do a lot worse than that one. It's an unbelievable scene in which by the end of it, the nudity of it is not. It's just secondary. It's just like you can feel yourself being cut by those knives. Listen, I think those movies. Obviously that and the history of violence are very, very special to him. He had a very special relationship with the set, the production, and the director. That was another thing where he lit up to talk about. As I remember correctly, I think he wasn't as effusive and as open about that weird sex scene with Maria Bello on the stairs in A History of Violence, which is also an amazing scene. I think that might have been very difficult for him because I think I asked him how was that, and he goes, very difficult. And I think actually that one, it felt like that was harder somehow than the nude shower room, the bathhouse fight scene with the Russians and Eastern Promises. But glowingly talked about that. And I can't stress this enough. You talk to enough public figures, there's ones who will just tell the stories over and over. And there's ones who are like, oh my God, another Lord of the Rings question. I always liken it to bands. Like Def Leppard is still out there playing Pour Some Sugar on Me. They've been playing that song for almost 40 years and they're still playing the hell out of it. And I still respect it. I really do. And Viggo was like that and then some.
Tell you what, man, Cronenberg likes weird sex scenes. I think you know that about the gentleman. I assume most of you are following already. It is at Kyle Brandt on X. And of course, Good Morning Football, just the best football show in the world. Right. It's fun and funny. And I'll tell you what, brother, I know you probably hear it a lot. It's nice to watch football, people that really seem to enjoy football and enjoy talking about football, because if you're in the business, it feels it's rarer and rarer. and there seems to be hostility from lots of corners of people towards the sport. And you guys harbor none of that. So I hope you want that to come across, because it does.
Football, it's okay. I feel like there was a time that sports were fun. I swear, I remember this. Sometime in my childhood, you'd be like, I really like watching this football game and I like talking about it. I see so many people talking about football who are just pissed off the whole time. That's fine. If it works for you, that's okay. It's just not for me occasionally, but I still really like watching football and talking about it with you and Radio's Gigantor.
Radio's Gigantor. By the way, I stole Gigantor from Speed. Keanu Reeves calls the big Native American guy on the bus Gigantor, and it just makes sense.
He does. I just watched Speed with my 10-year-old. Somehow it got in the depth chart before the Lord of the Rings trilogy, but it wasn't the best decision I've ever made. But I do remember Gigantor on that.
You're putting good humans into this world, sir, with these decisions. Kyle, thank you so much. You're the best. I'm a huge fan.
All right, guys. See you later. Take it easy, Chad.
Great to see you, brother.
You
there
too,
he
man.
is.